The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are talking about Friday the 13th, 2009. This is it, John.
This is it.
This is it. This is the epilogue, as I like to think of it. We've come full circle all the way back to just a plain old Friday the 13th movie.
Now, we're skipping, we didn't really talk about the end of last episode, but we are skipping Freddy versus Jason because we haven't given Freddy his due yet, and it seems unfair. So we'll be coming back to that, even though that sort of feeds into this one technically in terms of the people behind it. But I think you can appreciate, if I want to use that word, this movie without having seen Freddy versus Jason.
So this came out in 2009. I was thinking partway through this film that it only came out 8 years after Jason X. And to me, it feels like, and I feel like this will be the bulk of the conversation, but it feels like so far removed from those movies and in only an 8-year time. But like you said, in 2003, was Freddy versus Jason. So if you're keeping track, 2001, Jason X, 2003, Freddy versus Jason, 2009, this remake. And this feels so wildly different than those other two in a short amount of time. Yeah,
well, it's almost like the difference between, another 10-year, essentially 10-year gap between the first one and Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh, sure.
That one is like, you have all these movies to kind of track an evolution of sorts, but this is just like, wow, taste changed.
Yes. So this was at the time of the aughts, I guess, is what you refer to it as. But man, remakes for horror were just all over the place. Just a few, like off the top of my head, the Texas Chainsaw remake, which this director was responsible for.
Yep.
House of Wax, Hills Have Eyes, My Bloody Valentine was done. The Ring was huge. Glass House. Yep. Prom Night, When a Stranger Calls, a whole bunch of these movies that are frankly kind of forgettable. These were all being remade, so it was very in vogue at this point to have this like very darkly lit, overly saturated stuff mixed with just being way more hardcore and having some new metal in your soundtrack.
And full of hot people.
Yes.
Particularly like Platinum Dunes, who produced this one. They were all doing it, but Platinum Dunes was big on that.
Yeah, and Michael Bay that's his company, right?
Platinum Dunes was Michael Bay's company.
Right.
They did,
so he's responsible for that.
Yeah, they did this and Texas Chainsaw and the Amityville horror remake. Or who knows if it's a remake? It's one of the thousands of Amityville horror movies.
Yes, which, as I always say in these episodes, we'll probably get to it. Marcus Nispel. So he was like a hotshot commercial director in LA at the time. And he was trying to make his big move into features. And I think he was supposed to do End of Days with Schwarzenegger for his first feature, but ended up backing out because of budget restraints. I can't recall the ordering of everything, but evidently my favorite thing about him is that one of his assistants leaked a 60-page manifesto that he wrote on set etiquette, just detailing, as you can imagine, how difficult he would probably be to work with. I mean, some of these things, they might be your general kind of writer. If you hire some like fancy pants person, you're like, he never has to drive. He is picked up at X time and dropped off at Y time. Like that's fairly typical.
Only Sprite, no 7-Up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like definitely that kind of stuff. But he had stuff in his manifesto such as like Mark, and he referred to himself in the third person.
Obviously.
Marcus will never stay at the same hotel as the client, so he could just be away from the client, and I understand that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm like, where does it get weird?
Yeah, it's okay so far. But it was on down to, and I don't want to pick out the one weird thing out of 60 pages necessarily, but he did write something to the effect of, there is somebody famous on set, please make sure you have a young assistant of their preferred sexual attraction to look after them on set. So it's just like, come on, dude.
Oh, man.
Wow. Yeah, so he was already a piece of work, it seems like. we all make mistakes, of course, but gee
but that's
whiz.
just like codifying it is. Yeesh.
Yeah, I love the idea of a disgruntled assistant just being like, "Screw this guy, I'm getting this out there." And like, there's an article about it in Variety, so like that must have been all over town at the time when it came out.
That stuff's always kind of funny. Like you have Christopher Nolan's like, no chairs, no one can sit on my set. I always liked it because this made sense, and I still think should probably be in play. Guy Ritchie, I remember, I think it was on Snatch. They had a swear jar, but for mobile phones. Like if your mobile phone went off, you had to pay money into the swear jar. And actually, he ended up having to pay a lot of money.
I was going to say, as long as he follows his own rules, that's fun.
I guess if put to it, I have certain things I like when I'm working, but to write a manifesto about it, I guess maybe I don't like them that much.
60 pages. I just like a black coffee in the morning.
Yeah,
frankly.
That's kind of it. Just please be nice to me.
Yeah, that's the big one.
It's all written in lowercase with hearts dotting the I's.
There you go. Emojis. Yes.
Yeah.
So he was just trying to make his big jump. And by the time this came out, the Texas Chainsaw remake had already come out to a lot of success.
Yeah.
Mixed reviews. Some horror fans like it. I remember liking it, but that's another podcast. But by this time, he was like, well, do I want to do another horror franchise? And the producers did convince him to do it. So he packed up his 60-page manifesto and got on the plane to Austin, Texas, where he met up with the same DP as the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, wow.
So we'll get into it later, but one of my big complaints about this film is the cinematography. And that's surprising to me when I found out it was the same guy, because the original Texas is like one of the most beautifully grotesque films ever shot.
Absolutely. I think
but you can see what's going on in those.
Yeah, I think that's you wonder how much they're like, well, okay, the new Texas Chainsaw had this look to it. We want to go for this look. This is what's in vogue now versus sort of the individual artistic choice of the cinematographer. And I have not read anything with the cinematographer, so I could not tell you whether or not that was the case.
That's true.
When I thought about the Texas Chainsaw, and even just looking at their movie posters, and I watched the trailer for the Texas Chainsaw remake, and it has a very similar look. And as we've become increasingly obsessed with branding, I can see that being sort of a thing. We want to give it this Platinum Dunes feel.
Yeah, especially if they're tackling two of the biggest old school franchises. But yeah, like, what would you even call that look? It's so dark. It's gritty. Like the light, whenever there's sunlight, it's so yellow. Having worked in this business for a long time now, I'm so bad at describing what cinematography is and the methods, but that's not my job, damn it.
It's like the Supreme Court pornography. Like it's look, I don't know what it is, but I know I want to see it.
But I know when I see it. I know a Platinum Dunes. I know a Platinum Dunes mid 2000s horror remake when I see it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just gotta look.
The writers of this were the same writers as Freddy vs. Jason, and they were disappointed in the tone of Freddy vs. Jason. So they were like, screw it all. We're going we want to go like super hardcore with this one. And they did, the tone. I don't know how well you remember Freddy vs. Jason, since we haven't covered it yet, but like it's way more fun because Freddy's in it.
Yeah, I recall it being, because I was sort of expecting, not really, honestly, at the time it came out, not knowing much about either franchise that much, like only just kind of the broad strokes of it. I was expecting more of a straight horror thing than it was. It was a little bit sillier than I sort of anticipated.
Yeah. This one just ended up like you wanted all the Freddy one-liners and like the campiness and stuff. No, we're going just mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best word for a lot of these kind of remakes are. They're just mean films.
This one is mean and definitely like we've talked about Jason being more cruel before, but I think there's some elements here that are definitely, this is a newer Jason. They set out to do a newer Jason, and certainly it is, but I also don't think it works all that well. This leans more towards the Danny Steinman school of Friday the 13th. And in fact, they had talked about wanting to do sort of like a remake of Part 5, in the sense that the movies like 1 through 4 has kind of happened. And instead what they did was just remake all of them, basically.
They just remade 1 through 4.
Yeah, they just combined, I mean, for their stuff from the other ones as well, they just jammed together a whole bunch of stuff. And it's funny because Victor Miller was like, hey, you're using my characters, give me money. Apparently would have to have given him more money if it was a remake, which they initially said it was. But they're like, oh, it's not actually a remake. It's kind of a proto-sequel kind of thing. So we sued them and lost. Yeah. We'll get into Victor Miller and his legal troubles with Friday the 13th in the future. But
yeah, and I cannot think of anything in this film that would necessarily make it not, why couldn't this just be part 13 or part 12, excuse me. Okay, so after Jason Goes to Hell, maybe. Well, I guess they did want to reset what Jason was. Jason is very human in this film.
Right.
And so you'd have to strip away all of the supernatural, the Deadite stuff, the zombie stuff.
Right. The cyborg Jason. Although you could in theory go, well, this is actually Earth 2. This is when Jason crash landed at the end of X, like his evil spread out and hit this other kid, and turns out it was just like, his name was also Jason Voorhees, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It would be no less dumb than anything else. So
exactly. Yes. So yeah, this is the first time that we get to call this movie Friday the 13th in like 3 films, because the rights were sorted out. Enough money was bandied about, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because Paramount had control of the international distribution, whereas New Line was handling US. And so Paramount was like, hey, remember this title? I bet you'd like to use that. And so I don't know. Yeah. It's all the exciting stuff of intellectual property.
Right. Yeah. Which is apparent in the opening logos. I'm a sucker for when a logo gets its own treatment in a certain feature. And I always wonder, like, you have to be like a big time muckety muck to just be like, no, I'm going to do my own version of the Paramount logo.
Yeah, like I'm going to do the Warner Brothers and Matrix green, like how they got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is lower on that level, but it's just everything is bathed in red instead of blue. The blue of Paramount and the blue of New Line. Yeah, I think that's kind of cute. Usually,
well, it's also funny, like thinking about talking about like getting more brand focused, and certainly having a background in like doing corporate video and stuff like that. I feel like people have only gotten like more insane with that. I wonder if how much of a fight you have to, like you said, how much of a fight you have to do to get that to happen. If it's like, we're trying to create a vibe, everyone knows Paramount. No one's going to be confused and be like, is this Russian Paramount? No, it's just, we're trying to set a vibe here. It's fine.
It's bloody Paramount.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one starts off on a flashback to 1980. So right away, we're not going to do the first Friday the 13th remake, as in like, because nobody would really be that excited to just watch Pamela Voorhees like rage around again. They want Jason.
This one, it felt like it was based on not the Friday the 13th film series, but like Ebert's reviews of them. Like that pearl clutching, like, well, they're just sex and violence. Like, well, okay, then I guess that's what we'll do. Because it does seem like they really amped that up. Compared to really compared to the last few films.
Oh, certainly.
Which is sort of interesting in terms of all the fights they had with the MPAA over, head bounces and whatever versus like what's presented in this one. And I know for the audience at home, as opposed to who else would I be talking to? I guess you would be, we watched the killer cut, which they had allegedly had intended with the release of this, knowing they would have to cut stuff and knowing that they could make money on the back end by releasing 2 different versions. I was reading about the differences. There's not that much story-wise. There's just like, we added a little bit. We hung out on the gore a little bit longer and gave you even more boobs. But there's like, the only difference is a scene a little bit later with Whitney that's really ultimately pointless.
Yeah, I don't know how you would go ahead and try to recontextualize Pamela Voorhees at this point, especially because we've seen her in so many different flashbacks. So they just straight up go into kind of their own version of the end of part 1. And luckily we get just dropped right into it, and the same stuff happens and the decapitation of Pamela happens. But did you know who played Pamela Voorhees in this?
That was not a visitor. Kira Nerys.
Yeah. From Deep Space Nine. Is this the mirror version of Kira Nerys?
This is like 5 mirrors deep.
This is really far down, but that made me happy.
I saw I read some interview with her because it was just like some like Trek website that was like, not a visitor, it's the new Friday the 13th. And she's like, I'm in it long enough to give a bunch of exposition and have my head cut off. And that she hated having her head mold made. That's it. That's all the information they had. And they're like, print it, go.
Yeah, go.
But that's and that's certainly what she does. She says out loud,
"You're the last one. I've killed all the others. It'll be easier for you than it was for Jason. Why? You need to be punished for what you did to him. I didn't do anything. You let him drown. Jason was my son."
So it's I always kind of like that when you're dealing with, in theory, an established thing. Like, I always point to the Edward Norton Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Rather than just like give you the background of the Hulk, they just do it as a montage under the credits. Like, boom, you see this scientist, he became Hulk. That's really all you need to know.
Gamma rays.
And this, like, they just like, it's very perfunctory and very kind of clumsily done with the dialogue, but whatever. It's done. You see it. But I don't understand. And this is a problem with this movie in general, because they were very much like, well, rather than wanting to just remake Jason in the sense of that the previous movies have done, we're like, well, we need to sort of establish this lore and all this stuff. They decided, well, let's make it more rooted in reality. But the problem is your basis is dumb. Your basis is she thinks he's dead, but he's not dead. He's a little kid. But I was like, I made the joke in the second one that like she thought he died, or she pretends that he's dead, even though he's alive, and she's just, salted nut roll. But you see Jason in the woods after she gets decapitated, and he comes over and grabs her locket and grabs the machete and then just like walks off and then does what? Like he's
for
11.
Years.
Like, yeah, like what is he doing? And so by trying to root it in reality, then I'm left with those questions rather than just being a ghost story. Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, oh, absolutely. He was living in the woods alone.
Right.
And it does make me wonder, like, I wonder, because I can't compare it to the other Platinum Dunes or the other ones that came out at this time, but I feel like there's a trend, not yet, but there's a trend of that I want to say corresponds directly with the rise in popularity of I fucking love science. Like people want everything explained to them in movies. Yeah. That like there's that. So I feel like that's part of this. Like we need to have it rooted in reality. People won't accept that it's just no, he's magical somehow.
So in 2007, Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween came out, where he went. And this is, again, a podcast for another time, but he went completely in the, like, we have to explain Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And he spends way more time on it than they do with Jason here. But again, like you're saying, this is the mid-aughts where we want to see how gnarly the childhood was. Yeah. Which, as always with horror stuff, the more explanation, to me, the less spooky, the less interesting. And maybe there's a balance.
Yeah, at the same time, in the episode we did for 2, I said that was the largest leap you had to make. And yeah, it's ridiculous. But I think it's a testament to how much these movies have rotted my brain that I'm like, no, it makes total sense now. Like, I can't believe you would try to explain it.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, we little Jason finds the locket, walks off into the woods, and I guess lives for years.
In the house where no one thought to look for him. I don't know.
Oh, God. Yeah. Cut to Crystal Lake, present day. So it could be anything, even though the flashback was clearly labeled as 1980.
Yeah.
But this is modern day. I don't want to go down the brain worm of trying to figure out what year it is.
Yeah,
it doesn't
how old
matter.
Jason is. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. We spend the next 23 minutes with a group of teenagers who get dispatched with pretty quickly. And if you've never seen this, it's just like, man, they're just like ramming through our main characters right now, huh?
Yeah.
They're on a quest to find a weed field to go ahead and harvest and sell to become rich. Little did they know that it was going to be, legal like within 5 years.
I had to like rewatch it again because they were talking about like there was an abandoned mine, but then there's some weed they're looking for, and I was like, wait, there's a weed mine?
Yeah.
I was imagining selling a series of shirts of the Stone Seven Dwarfs in like Puerto Vallarta or something, just like.
Or I was just thinking of the Dwarves of Moria delving too deeply for weed, man.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
And this bud was unkind. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, they're very typical for these type of characters. The one standout to me was just like the guy from Mad Men. I can't remember his name.
Ben Feldman, who was also in that Superstore show, and then Silicon Valley, which is funny because like I liked him in Mad Men, but in Silicon Valley he plays a jerk, like he's a lawyer, and then in this he's a jerk. But I'm like, I know that's not him, but I hate that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's half of the issues with this film is just like the hatred of the characters is dialed up to 12.
Yeah, at the end of last episode, I commented that I remember it being like that they made the characters like not that hateable. boy, what was wrong with me when I saw this? What kind of person was I? Because they're awful.
That says more about you.
Yeah, I had to do some serious soul searching. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, right.
But I do like, so apparently Richie, played by the aforementioned Ben Feldman, and Wade, who's the guy with the GPS that's trying to get them to find the weed field. They're friends in real life, and they have a very like Teddy Crispin Glover feel from part 4. Like just their interaction. We're like, you're shitty to him, but like I see why you guys like. There's a camaraderie there, and so that worked. Whereas I don't like anyone else in this initial group. No. Particularly the weird moment because they're walking and they're already like Richie's being insanely horny and Wade's talking nonstop. And then at one point, and I honestly could not tell you this character's name because I don't know if they mention it, to Whitney Miller, he's like,
Whitney, where are you right now?
I'm here.
Are you?
I'm here. Right in the middle of nowhere.
It sets something up like, oh, well, what's with this person? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like what an attempt to give this character some kind of depth in no particular way. Like,
wasn't there something to the effect of like she was taking care of her mom who had cancer, and we find out a little bit of that, but it was so just thrown at the wall later.
Yeah, it didn't matter. It didn't like when you got that realization later. It was like, oh, okay, I don't know.
That was it.
Yeah,
she didn't have cool psychic abilities or something.
It's just not interesting because you think something's going to happen. It's not even like a decent feint.
Yeah,
it's getting too late. We're going to camp for the night. Then they're sitting around talking and starting to pair it off. And this is like a 12-year-old's idea of seduction. Yeah. In this, like two of Whitney and her boyfriend go off to make out, and then the other couple, Richie and Amanda. Wade is talking to Richie about something, and Amanda is just taking off her top behind him and like rubbing her boobs. And Richie keeps pantomiming how they're going to go have sex.
If I'm being judicious, I'm just like, that just reminds me of like, a Bugs Bunny seduction thing where like, when Bugs is dressed up like the Lady Rabbit and, he's just like trying to do stuff behind the shoulders of somebody else. And Ben's reaction is just as bad as like a wooga, like eyes coming out of his skull. Yeah. But if I watched it with that lens, it was kind of funny to me. But I do agree that it's like totally like the 12-year-old's version of it.
Well, it's like if a Bugs Bunny cartoon was written by Maxim magazine, like it's ridiculous.
Who's on the cover of that? Wait, who's on the cover of Maxim magazine?
Brunhilde? I don't know. There's not. It would be like Bugs Bunny and drag or something like that.
Yeah, it must be Kill the Wabbit.
Yeah. Oh no, it's definitely Bugs is a Valkyrie. Absolutely, Bugs is a Valkyrie.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, they go to have sex, and then there's one of the most pointless needle drops I think I've ever heard in a movie.
Oh God!
For whatever reason, Wade is walking away listening to Sister Christian by Night Ranger. And like it doesn't like lead into a bit or whatever. It's just like, hey, you know this song? I like this song. Here you go. Whatever. He stumbles on the weed field, and Jason, Baghead Jason, who dispatches him fairly quickly. Oh, but not before Wade pees, and you get a sign that you're in the best possible of movies, a Foleyed fart noise.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I did hear that.
Because test audiences, audiences weren't buying the peeing. You throw a fart in there.
Totally.
It's that attention to detail.
The last thing about Sister Christian, I can't help but think of one of the greatest scenes out of Boogie Nights at that. And that scene is so ridiculously intense. Yeah. Where, it's not like showing a better movie in your movie, but like if a song has been used so well in another film, maybe it's just kind of off limits for you after a while, especially if you're just walking through the woods.
Yeah. Like don't drop Layla right there or something. Or in a similar thing when they're sit around the campfire right before this, and Richie says,
"Fuck that Euro shit. This is Pabst Blue American Ribbon."
Like he's basically making a weird Blue Velvet reference. It already kind of sets the tone that the people behind this movie think they're too good for this movie, and I don't. There you go. They may very well be, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like you're coming at this from a bad angle. If you're like, well, they
want to let you know that they're also sophisticated, but they like this stuff.
Yeah, which like Ron Kurz, for 1 and 2, just went like, yeah, this is dumb, but I'll write it. And he still like wrote it. Like it wasn't just like, no, hey, you guys know I'm still cool, right? Like I actually think this is, Whereas like you don't
around town.
Yeah, like I know who Tarkovsky is. Okay, you guys, like no one cares, man. Just You're making a movie about nude teens getting murdered. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then so he gets killed. And then you get this, particularly in the killer cut, this really extended sex scene between Richie and Amanda.
So while they're having sex, of course, he gets spooked or she gets spooked and he goes out to look. He finds Wade's dead body. Jason aggressively hacks into the tent and drags her out of the tent. And then we cut to she's in a sleeping bag suspended over a fire that's going in a very Mandy style execution scene here.
Yeah.
Poor old other guy gets his leg stuck in a bear trap on his way out. So this is already so much more brutal than the other films.
This is I would argue the cruelest Jason has ever been. Like, because he'll toy with people a little bit or something like that, but this just like Jason doesn't generally torture people. He just hack, done, move on. I mean, like there's sometimes like in the first thing that comes to mind is Takes Manhattan, when he finds the woman at the beginning hiding in the boat, and like he slowly like comes at her with the spear. Yeah. But and it actually, when I saw that happen, the Mandy reference immediately came to mind, and it makes sense because Friday the 13th was such an influence on those, and that.
Yep.
But it's also amazing how when you actually put a character in that danger versus a person that has just boobs and that's it for their character, like there's nothing at stake for me to care about the character other than just like, this is really cruel. Yeah. It doesn't have the same emotional impact. And it also just seemed odd. I understand they have something to prove with this Jason, apparently. Even for what they're trying to go for with this more like survivalist, like protector Jason, which I'll get into that a little bit later, but it does seem needlessly cruel. Like beating someone in a bag against a tree is less ridiculous than like slowly roasting them over a fire to me. Yeah. Yeah. And again, we've already established that I have weird, like that I might be a terrible person. Take it with a grain of salt.
Between this film and Mandy, they're going for two different things, but it is pretty astounding how cutting back to Nicolas Cage while he's like wrapped up having to watch Mandy. And again, like you were saying, knowing Mandy's in there, the score, which is incredible, all of those things. And this one is just like, nope, just like, hang her over a fire for a little while.
It just
totally
seems
different.
And like I said, just the way that that I'm coming at this from this, having just watched all of them, it just seems like, well, Jason wouldn't do that. It seemed odd. Because I mean, like they did say that the film, I said they wanted to do their own Jason. This Jason is much more of a survivalist and just protecting like his stomping grounds, which he generally was in the first ones. Like we talked about this. I was going to say, like that his whole thing in the set, particularly like 2 on when he starts, he's in the shack. They're near his shack. He kills them. Third one, he's trying to get back to his shack. Fourth one, he's around his shack. Like this isn't a breathtaking new version of Jason.
Yeah. But so the other couple finds a shrine in this cabin, and Pamela Voorhees' head is in the wall, which I thought was actually kind of a nice touch, even though it's not like a full on altar, I suppose.
I think they
did reach in and like, ew.
So they find the Voorhees house, which in this case is not a palatial southern estate, unlike in Jason Goes to Hell, but it's very run down, very sort of Resident Evil 7, if you've ever seen that. But they find this like shrine is like, oh, there's something in the wall. They pull it out and it's the head. And I was a little like, why is the shrine just in the bathroom? Okay. Like he set up a little shrine. Fine. Whatever. He has a shrine to his mom's head. Because that's what Jason does.
Jason starts stabbing up through the floor. There's a whole lot of screaming. And we are revealed again. I mean, you referred to it earlier, but this is Baghead Jason. This is not Hockey Mask Jason, which I think was a smart move on this. Because that's still pretty creepy looking.
This again was like more like cruel and toying, whereas I feel like Jason in the past would just have shown up and whatever. Jason, although this Jason does utilize the Jason special power of stabbing through things, stabbing through the floor, but then
that's true.
And I will say though, this is definitely a shack upgrade from his shack in 2. Like he apparently had been watching some HGTV and got some desires.
As we all do.
Or actually, I think, and they never made a sequel to this one, but I like the idea of just Hollywood, if you're listening, and I know you are, for the sequel, have it reveal Pamela Voorhees, mom of the Property Brothers. He's actually like the 4th Property Brother.
Oh,
and so he did all that himself. He has this innate thing, but because he was shunned and set aside, he couldn't really use those tools, and all his skills of interior decorating, whatever, just got focused instead into murder.
That's where his all of his tools come from. Is just his house rehabilitation type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Whitney runs out and finds a guy with a bear trap, and he's still alive and struggling. And this is certainly something that comes up throughout the rest of the film that I noticed, where like the kills are not quick all the time in this. There's a lot of suffering.
There's a lot of suffering.
And so he was just sitting there like pawing at his legs, screaming. And then Jason comes up and like puts a machete right through his forehead.
This move right here tells me everything I need to know about this Jason. Because this Jason, by the way, not Kane Hodder. This is a stuntman.
How did we forget?
Yeah, Derek Mears, who I only know from the Twin Peaks season 3.
Yep.
Jason doesn't just appear and machete this guy to the head. He runs, which is not a normal Jason trait. But he does this huge windup, which really, to me, makes Jason a guy. I think of, again, going back to 7, the sort of truncated kill where he just sort of like underhand golf swings the guy's face with an axe or whatever. And how just like casually he does it. Whereas this one, he's got to put effort into it. Yeah. And I've grown to love the Kane Hodder Jason, but that's what he started out as.
Yep, it's what he started out as. And of course, they have to like ground everything in reality now.
Yeah.
So, what would he do? He would wind up. Yeah.
I mean, it's neat, but it's just, again, it's just one of those like, oh, I guess that's this Jason now.
That's really actually connected to a question that I was going to ask later. I constantly think about with these remakes, and I watch these remakes through this lens. Do you think it was only technology that was holding some of the originals from being this gnarly? Or was it just a completely different point of view that the filmmakers have? Because I wonder would Sean Cunningham have made like such a mean film? Was that his purpose? No, he probably just wanted to have fun, but maybe it's like the need to see realism in a lot of these newer films that make them so much more brutal. Like, we need to show the reasoning behind it, so it's terrible and brutal.
It's point of view, but it's point of view that's informed by those earlier films. It's the continual raising of the stakes that those early exploitation films are like, well, we got to make this ridiculous and brutal to get people in seats. But then it's like, okay, well, we're making this movie that's based on this, and we need to kind of like gussy it up a bit because audiences might not just be in the same thing. And so this is also in the era of like the Saw movies and stuff like that. Like we're on I want to say the tail end, or at least in the torture porn era has already kind of peaked, but like that's in there too. Sure. And this is in fact moving. This is right on the heel, or like right at the cusp of found footage being a thing. And so I think it's informed a bit by that as well.
And it's also informed by maybe like a backlash against Scream, which was fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, backlash may not be the right word, but like maybe just wanting to like veer away from the fun of those films too.
Yeah. And it's an attempt to bring Jason to modern audiences, and that's what modern audiences were into. So let's make Jason that way. Yeah.
23 minutes in, we get the titles.
Always a sucker
opening
for that.
Sequence.
Always a sucker for like the title card showing up at the end of the movie, like whatever,
There's
like,
another Mandy thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. 6 weeks later, a whole new crop of teens show up at the gas station. We don't need to go bit by bit through all this stuff because it's frankly really damn annoying, and just teens being annoying to each other.
Yeah, like this is a fascinating way to introduce all our characters to us, because they immediately have an argument about who's going to pump gas.
Lawrence, how about a little help?
Dude, that's not a good look for you, man. You gonna ask the one black guy to pump the gas for you? Shit.
Okay. Nolan, how about I pay you pump? Sure, man. Hey, I give a wicked blowjob too.
Now, granted, right now we're recording this in Portland, Oregon, where you cannot pump your own gas. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret for those of you listening in Oregon. It's not that hard. And yet there's a huge argument about it. No one wants to do it. It's like, oh, you can't do that. I don't want to do this. This guy will do it. Oh, fine. Yeah, it's pumping gas. It's not that big of a deal. But like, so immediately I hate everybody. I'm like,
right.
Damn.
I'm about ready to go on vacation with these fools, and like no one will just like pump the gas.
This has such a huge feel of 7 in the kind of stuff like, why are these people hanging out? Yeah, I don't understand what unites them at all. Particularly like the character of Trent, played by
Yep.
Travis Van Winkle, which absolutely that's that guy's name.
Absolutely, it is.
If you see his face. Who watched Seven and went, oh, the rich kid that comes through and complains about the party and like his uncle's cabin?
What is this? Will you look at this? The party hasn't even started yet, and already this bush looks like closing time at the stock exchange.
We should focus on that guy. People want
Yeah.
to spend time with that kind of character.
Right.
Good God. I mean, he does a great job. Like, I viciously hate Trent. Good job, Travis Van Winkle, but man, I hate that guy.
And I think he's a little defensive about how terrible he is, too, because he'll say in interviews, just like, no, I was supposed to be really bad, so you really wanted me to die.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, dude, we get it. Yeah.
And I get, like, again, like in the history of this movie, that's not. We've had mean, like Melissa in Seven, like Mean Rich Girl Slang. We've had this kind of character, but he's just so. I'm stopping to think, why are people hanging out with this guy? Like, because he has a cabin in the woods. They don't even seem that stoked to get there initially.
How are they friends? Yeah.
Yeah. Why do I care what happens to them? I know that we're just waiting for these people to die, like you said before. Like,
Of course.
here comes our dead teenagers.
Yep.
It's more fun fun is the right word. It's more interesting to me to have a character with like something to lose, or I like Chewie was a caricature, but he was a fun guy to watch. The rest of them, just who cares?
Just
Good
garbage.
God.
So all of these guys hang out at the gas station for a second, and we meet Clay here, and he's looking for his sister, which is Whitney from the opening sequence. We've got another Hunter character, as we saw in part 4.
Yes, yeah. This is basically Rob brought back, but they had a more reasonable amount of time passed rather than like a day. That is Jared Padalecki from. Did you ever watch Supernatural? I never did.
I never did, but I'm aware of it. It's a long running show, evidently.
People enjoy it.
But he kept saying like there was no evidence that was ever found, and I'm just like, what about that giant cabin in the woods with all the creepy stuff on the inside? And I know you're not supposed to get wrapped around that kind of logic, but you know.
I think that's again a throwback to just how useless the Crystal Lake cops are. They having a lake, I don't care. Like, is the forest? Well, I looked. I just pulled over. And I didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything. Yeah.
So it's fitting that they wouldn't find anything. There's
sure that's
in
true.
The lore. There's reasoning for it.
All the teens arrive at the cabin. Immediately, they say there's no signal on their cell phone, which is always necessary.
Yep, gotta get that out of the way.
I personally immediately hate the guy in the "Fuck Christmas" t-shirt because I love Christmas.
Yes.
And anybody who puts that on a t-shirt is just trolling, and I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
That guy is not invited.
Yeah, this was during the war on Christmas, which
you're
cost
right. It was
so many lives, and
so many
to be so
many elven
cavalier
lives.
about it. Yeah, so many poor elves. Never forget December 25th.
So totally, I was very annoyed by that guy early on. The cabin looks incredible.
That guy, Ryan Hansen, Nolan, he's great on Party Down, basically as that character.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny to see him in this. So that kind of gives me like, that helped him go down a little bit easier. It's like, oh, it's just like Party Down.
That's true.
That's kind of funny.
I didn't notice that because I liked him in Party Down.
But I still, no, go to hell with your Fuck Christmas shirt. Christmas rules.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of here. So Clay's going door to door asking if people had seen Whitney, and then he knocks on our stand-in for the old Harbinger, I think. This old lady who is very Texas Chainsaw style, kind of like Redneck in the Woods type of thing, and she tells him.
Outsiders come, they don't know where to walk. They bring trouble. We just won't be left alone, and so does he.
Just don't go into Jason's territory, man, or you'll get Rambo'd.
I took it as it's such like a backwards looking film, which not to get too far aside here, but like I had the concept of a legacy sequel been around?
It's a good question.
Like, for example, the new Halloweens, how they went like, no, this is technically Halloween 2 because this is technically Friday the 13th 2. But it's a combination of all this stuff. And I took this as to be that awful woman from part 5, Ethel.
You big dildo.
Oh, yeah.
And then we see her kid a little bit later in the guy that tries to sell weed.
There you go.
Yeah. But I think, I do think she's supposed to be a little bit of the now that you mention it, a little bit of the harbinger, the casting warning.
Don't go that way. Leave him alone.
Because you had the little ghost story that set it up, but this was much more overt.
And then Clay startles the good old boy, and I can't remember his name. He comes back later. He's running some kind of machine, and he startles him.
Fucking lucky there, Stretch. Came about that close to hitting the start button on a whoop-ass machine, boy.
That's Donnie. And
Donnie, yeah.
Donnie might be the most fleshed out character in this movie. Because we learn a lot about Donnie.
There's some weird stuff about Donnie.
Yeah. I don't
there.
need to know any of this about Donnie. But we know a lot about Donnie by the time his time is up.
Yes. Clay continues with his door-to-door, and he gets, of course, to the vacation home. And Jenna luckily opens the door and invites him in. And, of course, Trent is none too pleased and kicks him out for no reason.
Look, Clay, obviously, she's just trying to be nice, but you can't stay here. No offense, but this is a private party. I don't know you.
No, you don't know me.
That's so funny. I just said that like 2 seconds ago, that I don't know you.
Yeah, they had a previous altercation at the gas station, so they don't like each other.
But Jenna decides to go with him to go check out the other side of the lake, where he'll continue to search. We're cutting back to Donnie here, and he's smoking a joint and looking at a nudity magazine. And so, we're keeping with tradition. Since he's interested in sex, even via magazine, he's done.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Then I have in my notes, wait, implies that he had sex with a mannequin?
Yeah, well, so you have like Donnie. First of all, he's looking at boobs. And he goes ahead and spends some time licking a magazine, as I'm sure we've all done, be it Bon Appetit or you see
I prefer Food Network. Yes,
yeah, Electronic Gaming Monthly, whatever. But and then he hears a noise and is going to investigate, and he sees a mannequin, and he already uncovers a mannequin, and
Gina, it's just you, baby. It's been a long time, Gina. You remember that special night we had? Remember when you took my virginity? You're sexy. You're still tight as ever. I'm gonna fucking pound you so hard.
And then Jason kills him. And this is the only time you see Jason's face.
Yep.
Partly covered. And I do like that. I do like that you just get a hint of it. But then, because the guy tears off his mask, and then Jason kills him and finds a hockey mask. And they just make such a big deal out of it. Now, granted, and we'll get to this when we get to it, but one of the things that bugged me about the more recent Halloween remake is how much stock they put into the mask when it was just a thing he took. And even this, I can see wanting to give some credit to it because, hey, we're redoing it Friday the 13th. But in reality, he just took it off of Shelley. That was it. He just killed Shelley and took his mask.
But in this one, he just finds it in a pile of crap.
They just take some time with him trying it on and whatever. But even if as much as I like that they did Baghead, even if he just showed up with it on, that's fine.
Clay and Jenna find the broken GPS while Nolan and Chelsea are topless water skiing.
Well, of course.
Wouldn't
you? Of course, yeah.
You get a free Crystal Lake there. Nolan is living it up in the boat after he's told not to take it out for a spin. So of course he has to do it. She's in the back, topless water skiing, and he gets just shot by an arrow in the head, just
Great
out
kill.
of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. It's fantastic.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. Got me. Love it.
Yeah.
And this whole sequence is one of my more favorite bits in this movie.
I agree. Yeah. And so the boat goes kind of out of control. By then she's fallen off of the wakeboard thing, and the boat comes right for her. She doesn't know that he's been shot. And the boat just nails her in the head.
Clots in the head.
The filming of her being kind of out of it after she got hit by the boat was actually the most disturbing part for me, by far and away. Again, it's the suffering. It's not the immediate kill in this remake. It's like we're going to show people actually suffering on screen, and it's a little bit more gnarly.
And then so she sees Jason standing in the distance, realizes that oh my God, there's this creep over there. He probably did something. That's not good. Makes her way under the dock to kind of hide. He's looking for her. And then just a great kill where she's looking for him. All of a sudden, just through the dock, arrow comes down, lifts her up just enough, of course, you can see boobs. And that's okay, that seems like very much in the spirit of these kind of, of
the old movies. Yeah.
It's a brutal murder, but it's kind of like a fun wink. And I was like, oh, okay.
A little burlesque type of thing, maybe.
Yeah. And I kind of wish it had a little bit more of that, I guess. There's plenty of boobs, but just that kind of attitude of more fun.
The idea for her original death, I thought, was far more creative and far more scary, but not maybe fitting with this kind of film, where Jason just stands on the shore and she's too afraid to go forward and she just tires out and drowns. And I think that that's absolutely terrifying in a lot of ways, especially because she's just been hit by a boat. Yeah. Cinematically, I don't know how you pull that off and make it as intense, but people wanted the fast, machete to the head.
Yeah, that's going to take a lot of time. And also you're on a lake. Like there's another side to it. You know,
I like the idea of it, but the execution, I'm not sure how they would have done. But just the idea of, oh my God, I could get to shore, but this guy won't let me come to the shore. And I'm just going to I have to keep treading water and I'm not going to make it. That sounds more kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's rough. Like there's that movie Open Water about the couple that gets left behind after a scuba diving vacation thing. But you need a lot more time to have that pay off.
That's not this kind of movie.
I think Jason would have shot her with an arrow.
Yes. So Clay and Jenna have found Camp Crystal Lake and they're exploring around in the cabins and such. They hide because they see Jason returning with a body over his shoulder, which I don't think is something that we've seen before. Mm-hmm. And Jason has floodlights now. Yeah,
this was and I realized I was complaining earlier about, just letting Jason be spooky and weird or whatever. But at the same time, why does he running generators? Like he was 11 in the woods. Yeah. Some of this just doesn't make sense to me. It's like too much, not enough.
Yeah, there's an in-between. Yeah, and he's definitely moving with more of a purpose in this, I feel like, and he's so much more attentive. Yeah. Kind of like a Rambo, I guess.
It's also a little bit strange because we've seen the shrine, and as we get to a little bit later, Whitney's trying to escape the underground tunnels, that he's collecting dead bodies. But in the second one anyway, he was putting dead bodies in the shrine to his mom, in theory. That's what it looked like, because there was this locked door, and he was piling up the body. What's he doing? What's happening with that? Because the shrine, Bob's head is nowhere near where he's collecting the bodies. Like, why?
Mm-hmm. So we find out Whitney's still alive. She's captured. She's below ground.
Yeah, she looks like his mom. That was discussed in the first little bit. We skipped over that. They find when they're searching in his property brother's house, a locket that's a picture of his mom. And they're like, hey, that looks like you. And so he doesn't kill her because she looks like his mom, but he chains her up. Mm-hmm. Okay. The Jason-esque kidnapper felt weird to me.
Yeah, taking a prisoner. Is it just the whole, I'm going to keep my mom as close to me as possible by chaining her up? Is that the logic? But
I know it's not my mom. So, I don't know. Because, in fact, when we see this, he's down in what we eventually learn is a series of underground tunnels, which they've used to try to explain his bilocating. Which, exactly. In the first few movies, never bothered me because it felt like he was sort of an entity of the forest, like he's a part of the forest. And that's part of the fear of it, is that you're in this new location where this guy has the mastery of it. But if the mastery is, I dug tunnels, that's a little bit less interesting. Yeah. But he's sharpening his blade and having flashbacks to his mom dying. Buddy, I'm watching the same movie. I know what happened. You don't need to tell me again.
I just saw it. Yeah. And if Jason's not thinking about killing a teenager, he's thinking about his mom. Yeah. We just always know that. Yeah.
It was just like a needless flashback sequence because then he starts getting mad and stomping around the place and throwing things around.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we got it.
This is where it starts to really annoy me with the cinematography, where it is so dark that I was having a lot of trouble actually seeing what was going on. And you can film. There's a skill to filming a dark film. And look, I'm not a DP, and I'm not going to tell the DP of Texas Chainsaw Massacre how to shoot a film. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I legit had a hard time seeing a lot of stuff in these next 45 minutes or so. Yeah, just based on how darkly lit it is.
It's lit like they're trying to hide something.
But at times we need to know what's going on.
Yeah. You spent all this money on these hot young actors and for Jason to look a certain way, and then you're like, what if we didn't show him?
We're not going to show his tunnels at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, it's really tough to see what's going on. But Clay has left his backpack. Whitney finds her own missing posters, which has got to be kind of strange.
Yeah.
She picks the lock, gets away, and stumbles over a lot of things that I guess are supposed to be horrific, but it's too dark to see anything at this point.
Yeah, those are the bodies that I guess he's collected down there.
Got it.
And then and then he gets her again.
Yeah.
This was the additional scene for the killer cut, and it's really pointless.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not add anything to it. It doesn't add, like, the problem with Whitney and Jenna and Clay as our hero characters is that there's nothing to them. They just aren't awful. And so, like, you could have spent this time, like, doing something with these characters, but no. I mean, these movies aren't full of, like, super rich characters to begin with, but, like, we've seen them be able to do stuff with them before, but they didn't even bother.
Not at all. Then we got more Trent yelling back at the captain, telling Chewie to go out to the tool shed, which of course he's doomed from the start there.
Yeah, because Chewie, they're watching Bree, the only remaining female in the cabin, doing a sexy dance. Like, this is the most male gazy, I would argue, of any Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Like, this is ridiculous with that. Like, Danny Steinman is just rolling in his grave. There's some, like, a bad, like, bogey Bacall, like, put your lips together and blow thing about a flaming shot that causes Chewie to fall over a chair and break it. So he's got to go to the tool shed to fix it. And then, like you said, it's like, oh, well, he's dead.
Yeah, somehow just not going down in film canon like Bogey and Bacall.
It's weird to watch these, be like, why can't these kids be horny like they used to?
Right. Yes.
They were so sweet in their horniness in the earlier films.
Yeah. When he didn't have to directly address it. So the tool shed is a giant garage, and of course, Chewie finds a liquor cabinet out there and starts hitting it, which of course I would absolutely do. If I'm going to hang out with this asshole, I'm going to, take his expensive booze real quick.
Well, what I love is that it's Lagavulin, because if I know anything about young people, they love scotch.
Yeah.
Oh, can I drink a Band-Aid at age 22? Hell yes.
It's anything that's in the cabinet.
I guess.
At that age, probably. Yeah. Trent and Bree are having sex and filming it at this point, and good God, this is the longest, most pointless sex scene in the franchise. And, again, I'm not a Puritan here, but usually these kind of scenes kind of lead to something.
Like, for example, the probably the longest one up until this point was from part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, where the one ends up getting impaled with the sign. And it's not just having sex for so long; it's the dialogue.
The kids are fucking just so juicy, dude. You got perfect nipple placement, baby.
I don't know if it's trying to be funny, but it's more just irritating because I don't like these characters. I understand you want to have the titillation and boobs and stuff. That's fine, but God, I hate these people. It's a chore.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So the one light goes out This is cross-cut with Chewie back at the place in the shed, and Jason's right behind him. And Chewie's playing with a hockey stick, because of course he is. And he tries to give it to Jason, and then Jason just jams a screwdriver through his neck very, very slowly.
And they spend a lot of time. Yeah, this is a very brutal kill. I think other than the sleeping bag burning, like, this might be like the most, because it's just a close up and it spends a lot of time on Chewie's death. Anyway, his friend, the other not jerk, is trying to masturbate in the front room to some like J. Crew catalog, something like that, and he even says,
"Lady, I'm about to ruin your perfect day."
What is this movie's view of sex? Like, it's a thing that, like, no one, they kind of like, they have a good time, but it's just like messy and awful, and really it's a shameful thing. Like,
it's always just bad.
Yeah, like it's like, is it to put you in the mindset of Jason?
It could be,
because it seems like this is like, no, we want to get you in Jason's place and make sex just like the most appalling thing ever. And yeah, they do a great job.
Gosh, they do. The couple upstairs finish having sex, and this is some girl is trying to get up there. And then she's pulled away by Jason, and I couldn't tell who it was because it was so dark. Who was that?
Jenna, who is the jerk's girlfriend.
Yep.
Who has gone away with Clay. Who's gone away with Clay, like, comes back because they know Jason's out. Trent immediately accuses her of cheating on him, even though he just did. They're hip to, like, there being a dead body, this creep in there, and they shut off the lights, are trying to hide from him. Bree goes to search for him in the bathroom. She's just wearing Trent's shirt, and maybe it says a little something about me, but in this situation, I would put on pants. My first thing is, like, I'm not dying in my underwear.
Yes.
But I'm also not an attractive person. So maybe that's it. But I do like this reveal, though, because she's in the bathroom and she goes to pull back the shower. And when she does, there's nothing in the tub, but Jason's right behind her. And I like that play on that. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then, then he kills her.
Right.
And
the police show up. So they did manage to get a call out to the cops. This is a great shot, though, because there's some sort of needle tool like a
It looks like a fireplace poker.
what's the fancy name for that? An andiron.
Is that what that's called?
An andiron or a poker, I suppose, if you want to be not smart about it.
Yeah, I don't.
But
that's a poker.
he gets an andiron. No, yeah, he gets a poker through the door and into the cop's face and into the cabin, and it's a really great kind of like drifting shot, like through the wall.
Not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But it would have been great if he got someone on either side of the door. That would have been kind of cool.
There you go.
But
yeah, shish
you know,
kebab.
it's okay. It was still neat.
Trent starts shooting because he found his dad's gun. And this is going to go well, obviously. Yeah. And we get a body thrown on a cop car, which is necessary in the film. And I just thought, is this the only window breakage we're going to get? Here again, I was getting a little bit annoyed with the like truly can't see anything because they're running through a forest. And I was having trouble like keeping track of who this was. A trucker stops. Trent gets stabbed by Jason. Machete goes up through his body, and then he's thrown on the back of the truck. And it seems to be some sort of like hay bale machinery.
I think it's almost like a tow truck, because you see it at the beginning when he's at the weed guy's place. It seems like Jason's gonna like pick up the knife and like just run it all the way up his body and like just split him in twain, but then throws him on the back of the pickup truck.
I did like this kill though, because I know you're supposed to anticipate Trent getting skewered. That goes part and parcel for these films, but I did like the throwing him on the back of a tow truck and then it just driving away for some reason. It worked.
It does. It serves a lot of functions. I'm happy to see Trent go. It's a cool kill. And yeah, the guy's just driving away with a dead body impaled on it. Like, that's great.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, like as fun as it was, like you think about the time they spent with him doing that versus like the time they spent killing Chewie and how brutal and awful that scene.
Certainly.
And it's like, what you had him be that much of a jerk. And it's like, it still wasn't enough of a payoff.
Yeah.
If you're like, well, people are going to really like watching him get killed. Like, he was still way too much of a jerk that I'm still mad at him even when he's dead. It's not like,
didn't quite equal out.
It's not like when the crusty old Dean gets it in 8, it's just like.
Right. Everyone finds the tunnels. They find Whitney. Jenna ends up getting stabbed. At this point, we're kind of a sprint to the finish here.
There's a lot of nothing that happens in this. Like, there's a lot of just like, oh, we're in this final. We know who the characters are now. I am surprised they killed Jenna because it seemed like, oh, well, she's one of the good ones.
She had all the makings of the final girl. We barely heard her like swear. We don't see her drink.
Yeah.
She doesn't have sex. Like, she's following the rules of the final girl, but she ends up getting killed.
But like I was saying before, like these characters that are the good characters, like just kind of have a lack of traits rather than like positive traits. Clay is very single-minded, like, I'm getting my sister, and then he found his sister, so now what? Like, I don't care about this guy. He completed his mission. He doesn't want to die, but who doesn't? Except me watching this movie. But so when they kill Jenna, it's like, oh, okay, that's Jenna, right? Yeah, okay, that's Jenna. They killed Jenna. That's too bad. And then they keep going, and eventually they get. So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, they've killed her, so the other two are probably not going to die. So I'm not very interested. It's like we talked about not sorry to keep going back. This is a movie about franchises or a podcast about franchises, but this movie also goes back. It's almost like the fight in 5 where Reggie the Reckless is watching. So I'm like, well, they're not going to kill her in front of Reggie. Like, nothing's at stake here. And they fight for a little bit, and finally, like, she slashes Jason, or like they do the part 3. Jason gets hung in a barn. They use a chain and trying to hang Jason. Of course, he gets out of that, and then they use the back of the chain and throw it into a wood chipper. And then she delivers this stupid line:
"Say hi to mommy." In hell.
Evidently, she fought saying that as much as she possibly could, and then she finally just went ahead with it. But she's always been embarrassed about that.
I kind of imagine being that character and like later being like, you know what? Now I come up with the perfect thing to say. At the time, don't tell anyone I said that, okay? Because let's tell people I killed Jason, but I didn't say anything, or like, let me workshop it.
And then I'll say after I kill Jason, the jerk store called, and they're all out of you.
That would have been better. But then exactly. So the chain gets caught in the wood chipper, but then like his head just sort of goes up against it, which is, I'm sure, more real or whatever, but it's kind of anticlimactic where it's like the wood chipper, have him go through the wood chipper, but you want to keep him as whole as possible for the sequel. And they inexplicably take his body to the lake No reason.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just left him there and gone about their ways. But no, they take him out to the lake and drop him in and then very quietly pause like, oh, this is a lake and we lived. And he pops out to, guess what? There might be a sequel. I don't care.
Pops out, grabs Whitney, freeze frame, done.
And it's like, I so want this to be over by this point that, and it feels like perfunctory what they're doing. Like, oh, they're obviously setting up for a sequel that it's not, they could have just left. Why didn't they leave?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Totally. I mean, I did read that they went back and tried so many different endings because they felt like they had to throw in like a shocking ending. Mm-hmm. But at this point in the franchise, like, it's only shocking if you don't expect it.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's just fan service, I suppose.
But then I can also see the argument of people being like, well, you didn't do the thing where he comes back, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's better ways to do it than how they did it, is all I'm getting at. That even if like, because they do the thing that they kind of did at the end of 3, where it's like you see these locations of the different parts, like Jason's been at, or whatever. And if they just did that and then went to the running wood chipper with the chain like attached, but Jason's not there, that's all you had to do. That's it.
That would have been
great.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what's this about? But no, they went for a very dumb ending instead. And there never was another one. They kept talking about it. There's stories that like Paramount bailed on it to work on Darren Aronofsky's mother, which, okay, I'm not sure where that came from. There's also, and I do love this story, that during the premiere of it, Michael Bay walked out because there was too much sex. Now, the only...
That's incredible.
Yeah, the only source I've had for that is the Screen Rant article, and every other article I've seen is about how Screen Rant wrote an article about it. So I have I don't know if this is true or not. But I also like the idea that Michael Bay went like, okay, this is, even for me, this is too much. Or like,
that's just too much.
Yeah, like at least
after what I did to Megan Fox, like, you know, this is too much for me.
Michael Bay is Bogey and Bacall compared to the stuff in this movie. Like, it's so just like,
there you go,
horny, wanty sex, that it's artless in that way. And and Michael Bay at least tries. I'm not saying he's artful about it, but there's like, there's more of a tease, I guess. But
that's probably it.
Like I said, this just feels like I want to apologize to Danny Steinman for the stuff I said about him, because this feels like what he was trying to do. This is
definitely more in his camp. Yeah, he probably would have loved this movie.
He was just a man ahead of his time, is really what it was.
That's true. So yeah, that rounds it out. And I feel like I'm like split 50-50 on it, because there's some fun stuff in this, but overall, I don't think I like it. So maybe I'm more 70-30 don't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely towards the bottom for me, if not near the very bottom, simply because like I appreciate the remaking of like getting him back on a camp. Yeah. Like I had said before, we're taking the basic building blocks of it and doing something a little bit different. But I just didn't like the movie. Like, okay, so you did this different take on Jason that's like, what if Jason was a bit more like survivalist and cruel or whatever? Fine, but just the story they built around him, I really didn't enjoy. And like I said, I hate all of these people, so I'm fine.
I liked Jason himself in this. I liked Derek Mears in this.
Yeah.
I liked the look of Jason. I liked how they filmed him. But yeah, overall, like, I don't know, I still want more people that I kind of enjoy watching to get dispatched all throughout this.
I think of like Sarah from part 4. When she dies, it's brutal because she was the sweet thing. Or it just, people, so many of these characters that were just like, maybe they were assholes, but they were interesting to watch to a degree. So definitely some more than others. But like, I think I remember more characters from It Takes Manhattan than this one. Yeah. And I just watched this one. Like, they were just entertained. There wasn't anything special or interesting about them other than they were all very attractive people. Good for them on that.
Well, even though they were completely forgettable, we will not forget them in the in memoriam. Pamela Voorhees, played by Nana Visitor, decapitated. Wade, played by Jonathan Sadowski, slashed with a machete. Amanda, played by America Olivio, burned alive inside a sleeping bag. Mike, played by Nick Murnell, stabbed and then killed off screen. Richie, played by Ben Feldman, caught in a bear trap, head split with a machete. Donnie, played by Kyle Davis, throat slit with a machete. Nolan, played by Ryan Hansen, shot in the head with an arrow. Chelsea, played by Willa Ford, stabbed through the top of the head. Chewie, played by Aaron Yu, stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver. Lawrence, played by Arlen Escarpetita, cut down by a thrown axe. Bree, played by Juliana Guel, impaled against a deer antler door hook. Officer Brack, played by Richard Bierge, impaled through the eye with a fire poker. Trent, played by Travis Van Winkle, impaled through the back with a machete. Jenna, played by Danielle Panabaker, also impaled through the back with a machete. And that's the last that'll ever be told about those people, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, moving on. That's it for Jason.
That's pretty much it for Jason. For the movies.
Mm-hmm.
We'll revisit Freddy vs. Jason when we do the Freddy movies at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging up the hockey mask for now.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do we could do one more episode, sort of talking about the future of the series and just sort of an overall thing about it. But there is this series has, as I mentioned before, melted my brain. I probably have told you this story that it being summertime here in Portland, and it gets we've had a couple little heat waves. At one point, my partner got up early in the morning and opened up the house and opened up the back door, and then they went back to sleep. And when I woke up, the back door was open, and I was like, they left the back door open all night so Jason could just walk in? That was a reasonable thing that could have happened. Jason would have shown up.
Yes.
Not a someone or something, but specifically Jason. So
specifically Jason.
Yeah. So I'm ready. I need to be afraid of the leprechaun now. I need to be afraid of somebody else.
So yeah, like John said, I think we're going to attempt some sort of wrap-up show. We still got to get our head around this one, how we're going to do it. But we'll go over some overarching ideas of the series now that we've watched 12 of these. And clearly, the money is just waiting to be made when you make Friday literally the 13th film. Yeah. So where's that?
Because this one did huge numbers. It was very successful. Awful box office. And then the second one kept getting pushed. They floated because found footage horror was going there. They floated an idea of that. And apparently the fans reacted negatively. And the producers were like, well, we don't want to do that because people like watching Jason stalk and kill. But you could do that with found footage. But
I reacted better to that than I thought I would, to be honest, because I'm very split on how I feel about found footage films. Sometimes it really works for me, but I think you could do Jason. And at this point, why not just knock one out for $5 million?
Yeah, you've put Jason in other horror movies now, as we've talked about. Why not try a found footage thing? It is. I realize it'd be sort of Madonna trying to completely reinvent herself to stay with the current thing or whatever, but just why not do a spin on that? I'd watch it. It couldn't be worse than some of these other things that we've watched. And you could potentially make it interesting. There are good found footage horror movies already. The Blair Witch Project exists, and it
found footage in the woods.
Yeah, I don't know. There's ways. There could be ways to do it, but there's legal issues that currently keep that from happening. But I wouldn't mind additional Jason movies. I'm not sad to see this iteration not continue.
I'd agree.
That being said, I'm curious what it would be now, because the nature of horror has changed a bit for this current trend. Slashers aren't such of a big deal. I mean, obviously there's so much content these days that there are slasher movies. There's great slasher movies still being made, a lot of fun stuff. But as far as we want to spend a lot of money in the box office and have it be something would it be? They've already done the remake this, the sort of legacy sequel. Do you redo that again? Do you do one sort of set in the future they did, not in the future, but many years later, they just did with the stupid Texas Chainsaw one?
Yeah.
How do you approach that?
Try to bring back Tommy Jarvis somehow.
Yeah.
I bet that would be the angle.
They did for Freddy vs. Jason, but
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but apparently that's not ever going to be a problem because this is tied up in court forever. Which I keep seeing. It's so funny, looking at stuff about this movie and because already the 10-year anniversary had passed. People are they're saying that this is going to get settled by 2020, and it hasn't, and there's no current signs of it. But But anyway, no thanks to this one.
Yeah, not high on my list at all.
It did. Whether it was intentional or not, it did make me really appreciate even more of those first 4.
Absolutely. Those are ones that I'd revisit.
Yeah, it made me like things. What I liked about them, like them even more. I would absolutely turn any of those on at any given moment now.
Over this one. Yeah.
So thank you for making me fall in love with Jason all over again.
All over again, yes. All right, well, that's it. We will do one more kind of wrap up on this, our first franchise, and then I bet we'll probably kind of talk about what we might be doing next next week.
Yeah, we'll have to start like building our own mausoleum for these franchises. And then in our final episode, they can all come out of the graves and kill us.
There you go. Yes. Sooner than later.
Yeah, just come on. Let's do a bulk record of 500 movies.
Yes. You know what I remembered is next week we're going to have to see who won the kill count.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
God, I can't even remember what we talked about. That seems so long ago.
I will look back and send you those numbers.
Those numbers so we see where we're at. But
I'm guessing I was under. Because I think I was like, he couldn't have possibly killed that many people. He's killed a lot of people. leaving aside the we've already agreed to leave aside Solaris. Like that's not counts. That was
no 20,000 on there. But yeah, join us next week for our wrap up of Jason, talking about all kinds of stuff with that. And then we'll see where we're headed next.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.